Akeem, the African dream. Because every African dreams of being a big fat white guy. I don't mean that to be racist. I mean that as a sarcastic thing. So don't be saying I'm a racist. No, I'm just extremely sarcastic. And Akeem was a big fat white guy. Originally known as One Man Gang, he made a name for himself on the independence, on the territory, in the territory system, and in World Class Championship Wrestling before going to WWF at the time in the 80s, where he was a main eventer as One Man Gang. But Vince rubbed his hands together like this and said, I have an idea. It is a great idea. It is the greatest idea I've ever thought of. And so, One Man Gang's manager was Slick anyways. We are not going to get into the racism of Slick at this time, because Akeem is enough racism for one video. We do not need to get into ultra racism, because Slick was a jive-talking black man who was a stereotype of black people, and we do not need to get into that racism. So Slick brought Mean Gene Oakland to a parking lot one day and said, Mean Gene, you're going to witness the birth of a man going back to his roots. And so there are all these people wearing these tribal headdresses and stuff, beating on drums and dancing. And there's a trash can on fire. And then a puff of smoke appeared. And One Man Gang was dressed in typical, I can't speak tonight apparently, typical African garb. And came out talking jive and dancing with Slick. And Slick introduced him as Akeem, the African Dream. Now, I imagine this idea had to come from Vince McMahon, because Vince McMahon is a 2-year-old, and he thinks a white guy dressed as an African, dancing, talking jive. That's hilarious. Let's put all on TV. No one will care. And yes, people cared. People called it racist at the time, and it is still racist today. It's not something that people have went, oh, that really wasn't racist. No, it is still very, very racist. So Akeem went on to get a bit on a winning streak, because he is whatever you want to call him. And then he teamed up with Big Boss Man to form the Twin Towers. Or the Titan Towers, whatever it is. The Twin Towers. And they played a part in the destruction of the Mega Powers, because they were the tag team the Mega Powers were facing and feuding with at the time, when Macho Man hit Miss Elizabeth and knocked her off the apron, and Hogan ran her to the back to a trainer, and Macho Man getting double teamed before Hogan ran out and got to save, and they beat the Twin Towers, but then Macho Man turned on Hogan, turning him heel, and leading up to WrestleMania 5. But then $1 Million Man offered Big Boss Man a bounty to get his $1 million championship back. This is after WrestleMania 5. To which Big Boss Man refused. So he offered Akeem to turn on Big Boss Man and get his $1 million championship back. And of course, Akeem agreed. And so then he feuded with Big Boss Man for a while, in which Big Boss Man won the feud. And then Akeem just kind of appeared on the lower card, till he eventually left WWF and went back to being One Man Gang. because he thought I'm not going to be a big fat African guy for the rest of my life. Because I'm not African. In fact, I'm from the South. And he in fact, was from like South Carolina. And there are no Africans in the South. There are African Americans in the South, but there are no actual Africans. So if there are Africans watching this, hopefully you understand what I'm saying without me clicking my tongue. And that was meant more as racist than sarcastic. So you guys could call me racist on that one. Um, Trust me, I've heard you guys talk, and it talks like you're clicking your tongue. I've dealt with Africans before. Is your dream to be a big fat white guy? And you probably done it all, remember Akeem. Which, by the way, Akeem is a bastardized spelling of Hakim, which means leader, and it's Arabic, and is a popular name in Africa. Akeem is just a bastardized spelling of it. Akeem did return for the gimmick battle royal where he was eliminated, and he is still alive today at 62 years old. We are hoping he outlives Hogan, proving that a comedy gimmick can outlive a legend. So join me later in the week for the movie Black Creek. I don't know who Black Keith is. He's apparently a black guy named Keith. I know who Toby Keith is. I know who Brian Keith is, but I don't know who Black Keith is. So join me later in the week for Black Creek, a movie starring Cynthia Rothrock, which is pretty good. And join me next week where I have a bunch of other wrestling ideas written down, and we'll do another movie. I have a list of both written down, so we'll just decide then. See ya.